Hi guys, welcome to yet another Dogen sprint, number 23, Dockers themselves. So, as I explained in the release notes, this is really not a very big sprint in terms of user-facing sort of changes, which is kind of to be expected really, because Dogen is in a phase of deep sort of internal refactoring, and we will be until we finish version 2, until we get to version 2 really. But at any rate, there's a couple of things that are worth demoing, and then after we demo that, we'll just have a quick chat about the internal refactors. So the first thing we changed in this release was the creation of a new script for the palette generation. So I'll just quickly go through this. So what I'll do is I'll just show you the existing palette. We have a model whose purpose is actually to just demonstrate the palette, and so that we can test the palette and see basically how the colors work together and so on. What I'll do as well is, for good measure, I'm going to show you the before and after. So if I just go to where we store that model, which is this guy here, and if we just grab one of these like that, and then I'll just go to the share directory. Just have to show you the files which we have, supported formats. Right, so this is how the palette looked like before we did our changes. As you can see, there's a lot of colors, and these colors are a bit all over the place really. I mean, the good thing about this is that of course you can tell the difference between different meta types very quickly. So for example, object is very light colored and primitive is dark and so on. The downside of it was that we were discovering these colors sort of one at a time, and they don't really get along very much today. I mean, you can see that there's the notion of a group here, but the colors in the group are completely different. And then there's another group, and again same thing. And then there's a group where there is some kind of theme, but this is fairly random really. So this is not ideal. And besides, we were doing this manually, so every time we added a new meta model element to the logical model, we had to then figure out what color to use, which was becoming a bit of a problem, because it takes a while to find a color that's actually readable and so forth. So we thought, okay, can we automate this process? And as I explained in the release notes, I mean, we haven't really kind of done anything too clever. We just found this library in Python called Seaborn, and we're using that library to generate the colors. And what we've done in this script here is just to, as a starting point, we just choose a palette around similar-ish colors to what we were using before, but this time we just get the whole palette. So for example, for grays you can choose 20 grays or 10 grays or however many you want, and then the script then dumps those palettes over to the console. So I'll just demonstrate that by hopping over to shell. And if I just do, this is a Python 3 script by the way, so or is it Python 2? Might be Python 2. No, it is Python 3. Perhaps I haven't installed it here. So let's just go quickly through that. You should just pip install Seaborn, which is the library. I was pretty sure I'd installed it in this machine, but to be honest, I'm not much of a Python developer, so it's likely that I've done something a bit silly. The Seaborn has got a number of dependencies, as you can see, and I'm sure this is all to do with the power of the library, but as you can see, we're doing something really, really simple with it, so probably don't make use of a lot of this complexity. But once all these dependencies are installed and we execute the script, all that it will do is it's just going to generate the palettes that you saw a second ago. And if I just enable rainbow mode here in Emacs, you can visualize the palette. And then what we're doing at present is we're literally copying this palette over to the actual coloring script, which is this chap here, color. And you can just drop the palette here, and then the rest of the script will make use of it. And the way we change colors in the Dogen diagram in Dia at the moment is via the Python console. That hasn't changed. So you just paste the script here, and by pasting the script then kicks in and updates the colors. So in this particular case, if I just undo, well, actually I'm not going to undo, but I'm just going to reopen that file. Right, this is what it looked like before, and then paste the script here, and as you can see, it changed to the new palette. So this is actually only the beginning, as I said in the release notes. This is only the beginning of the process, because as you can see, this is really not quite the end state. I mean, these colors look really nice when they're like this next to each other, but if we take a realistic case of a model, such as a logical model, it's very difficult to tell the difference, for example, from an enumeration here to, say, an object. They look so similar that only if you look with a magnifying glass can you see that these are actually two different colors. So we need to figure out a way of increasing the delta, the gap between the colors in the palette, and I haven't quite figured out how to do that at the moment with Seaborn. But at least we've done a step in the right direction, and I think this is really how we want things to go. We just want to choose the color for the theme, which is a very quick thing to do, and then we just want all of the entities that are going to be inside of that group to just be generated by the script, so we don't have to think about it. So that was cool. The second thing we did in the sprint, which is also fairly straightforward, was to add support for org mode and dump specs. So what I'll do is I'll just hop over to a shell. This guy here would do, screwing up the screen a little bit. So if I just create a file here, I already had it. So as you can see, org mode is extremely useful, and the dump specs command contains a lot of information, and it was a little bit difficult to find things in that sea of data. So with this org mode format now, it's much easier to filter, because org mode provides filtering. It's also easy to go through it and to sort of visualize and browse the information via Emacs. So that was actually quite a useful thing. It was also a very easy thing to add, because we already have all the infrastructure for org mode support and so on, as we use that for other commands. So that was the org mode support. Okay, so that is all for user visible changes. So what we'll do now is just have a quick chat about the changes that we've done that are internal, which really don't affect end users at all. As I mentioned in my release notes, we have made quite a lot of strides in trying to get towards a logical physical space. Previously we tidied up the variability model and made it completely isolated from the physical model, using only the template instantiation as an interface between the two models. And this sprint, as well as renaming the assets model to the logical model, which was a small change but a pretty satisfying one really, because now it's all very consistent in terms of the conceptual model. We also tidied up the physical model, and this was quite a hard task to do. In particular, this model ended up being sort of a sum of a number of other models, smaller models, such as the extraction model, the archetypes model, and so forth. And as you can see now, the model is much more sort of coherent, in the sense that we now have a notion of a meta model, which is basically the physical dimension of the logical physical space. And the best way to visualize this, the way I visualize it, is in the logical space we have locations, such as what you see here, and these are basically what you normally would consider as namespaces. When you're creating a file or creating a class, you place that class inside of namespaces. And those namespaces and that concepts are very similar to locations in the logical model. It's just that you must understand that the logical model doesn't just model coding, it models any aspect around the software product. So it's not exactly the same thing as namespaces, but it's very, very, very similar. For the physical model, as it turns out, we also have a concept of a location. We always had it. It was inside of the archetype locations. And those concepts of locations are tightly woven with the meta model for the physical space. In other words, both of these are hierarchical spaces, or dimensions really. And when you place a file in this logical physical space, it's got two coordinates, the logical coordinate and the physical coordinate. And the file is the sum of these two together. And as it goes through the pipeline and it becomes an artifact, we start adding things to the artifact until we eventually get to the point where we get the content. Perhaps you should really rename content to file content or something, but the point here is that we are producing the file content as we travel through this space. So it was extremely pleasing to get to this point where it seems like things are more or less hanging together. However, there's still a lot of work to go, because in the past we left lots and lots of bits of types and things that are not in the right places. So for example, in the logical model you can see things such as the artifact properties, formatting styles, enablement properties. All of these are really physical concepts. Similarly, in the what used to be called the generation model, which is not the model to text model, we have also yet again modeling of enablement properties and so forth. And for good measure, when you go into each of the technical spaces, the models that are specific to a technical space, lo and behold, again, there's a lot of physical concepts here too. And all of these, each one of them, one at a time, has to move to their right places. So we now know how to model things, but the proof really will be in the pudding of moving these things around into the right spaces and deleting all these types that are in the wrong places. But at least it seems like we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and a lot of the work is kind of coming to fruition now. So hopefully the next sprint is going to be a very positive sprint in terms of tidying things up. Right, I think it's all for now for this sprint. Thanks very much for watching.